Hello MMA community, YouTubers, my followers, and people who want to make some money for tomorrow's UFC card coming up. Alright, I'm happy to bring you one of the most important segments of our channel, and anybody's channel it should be, which is if they're doing their jobs correctly and their due diligence, their research to make sure that their picks are confirmed, and they're paying attention to the details that any fighter especially is themselves going to be paying attention to before the fight. Every fight, I know before I started a fight, I didn't even in the streets, before you get into a street fight and you know you're matching up with an opponent, somebody you're going to go to war with, and it's going to be a fight till, you know, a winner comes out, wherever it is. It doesn't have to be in the cage or the ring. You look your opponent in the eyes and you can see, are they scared? Is this a guy who's going to be coming at you with everything he's got? Is he angry? It tells you a story that you can tell a lot about a fight, how it's going to go just off of the mentality, their confidence, their demeanors. Very huge factor. And then the other aspect is the physicality behind it. We got to see, are they in tip-top shape compared to how we've seen them before? Are they better, worse, the same? You know, that tells a tall tale itself. So we've discovered a lot of things. I was able to confirm some stuff, and mostly confirmation. This is usually always a confirmation week because you're hardly ever going to see somebody coming in and way different than they are supposed to be coming in. And they usually are who they are outside the ring. The way they are in the ring is how they typically are outside the ring. So their demeanor, like for example, Delidze, he talks crap to his opponents. He has that attitude of like, come on and hit me, I dare you, like this Sean Strickland type of attitude in the ring. He talks crap, and you saw what he was doing to that Phillips guy in the third round. He was saying to him, come on, I'm going to give you a chance to win the fight. And he was winning all 3 rounds and still engaged in the middle of the ring, in the middle of the octagon, in a heated exchange back and forth. He was a man of his word. He wanted an entertaining fight. He wanted to give the fans an entertaining fight. He wanted to give his opponent a chance to win and get a knockout, which was the only way. And he said it to him face to face inside the ring, and that's the same kind of attitude he has outside the ring. He's a badass. He likes to talk crap, and it shows. And I noticed a lot of things I picked off on in the face-offs. I'll give you one example. We're going to go down the list of all the fights, and I'm going to tell you which ones I'm more confident in now than I was even in before, and what I noticed. Martin Vettori, the IQ he has in his fights is a lot of what we've seen in the weigh-ins. He did not look confident. He was more like nervous. He was smiling, which is weird. When you're fighting somebody, why would you want to smile at them and make, you know, jokes unless you're nervous or you're just feeling awkward because you're antisocial, which could be a personality trait of his, so it can necessarily mean much. But just in generally dissecting the way they fight and seeing the condition that Jack Hermansson is in, although there were reports and he confirmed he had a toe injury, I don't expect, he was walking without a limp. He looked fine, tip-top shape, and he looked stronger and bigger and better than I've ever seen him, as opposed to Martin Vettori, who didn't look his best, not his worst maybe, but maybe his worst. He just didn't look as good as I would hope. But it has a lot to do with that. It's a short notice replacement. By the time, before he even knew about the fight, Hermansson was already training and weight cutting and watching his diet. And mind you, he was preparing for a kind of a more dangerous opponent on the feet, which is where he usually gets in trouble. Martin Vettori's not as dangerous on the feet. He's got more wins by submission than knockouts. So that's why it plays perfect. I'm sure he was pretty happy to find out he got not just a higher ranked opponent, which makes more of a merit for him to get the title shot after this win, but it's an easier opponent, and he's lined at an underdog price tag. So the MMA gods are showing, but this is a trick that a lot of time Vegas will play on their bettors. If they, like for example, Sumatajeri, okay? The guy's only gonna possibly win by decision or knockout. He doesn't get submissions. And the guy, his opponent, usually loses by knockouts. He was finished early. The knockout prop bet was like plus 200 almost. Maya losing by decision. She's only lost by decision in the last 10 years. Nobody submitted her or knocked her out, but it was plus 200 as opposed to minus 1400. It's a trick they play. It makes it look like if it's too sweet of a deal at plus something, maybe it's because it's not supposed to happen. And a lot of people they get scared at betting plus 200 in parlays. I told you guys that was a perfect. There was no other option I could see her winning by, and I told you the same thing with Sue Matajeri. I parlayed it. So when you're getting Vegas to play tricks like that, it's important to pay attention to forget about the line. That's why I've said this in my last video. I'll say it again. People make bets based on the line sometimes. Oh, this guy's a big favorite, so he'll be easy parlay. Why do you think I told you guys don't bet Louis Koski? Don't bet Kamaka. Louis Koski was the biggest favorite of that card. He was at least the second biggest favorite. He was minus 600, minus almost 700 when the fight started. And I told you, the guy was a game opponent. He was dangerous in the first round. He was going to probably have the better cardio. He was the bigger man at the face-offs, I noticed as well. So I told you guys, don't bet it. And he lost at one of the biggest favorites of the night. Same with Kamaka. I even made notifications in my Patreon letting you guys know what mistakes he was making during the fight that was going to lead to him losing the fight while he was winning the fight. So his opponent at live betting numbers, even, especially opening up as an underdog, Pierce was an underdog and then became a bigger underdog after the first few moments of the first round. While he was losing the fight, I was noticing mistakes and holes in Kamaka's game, and I said it was going to come back and pay. He was going to pay for it if he kept doing it, and my patrons capitalized on that and cashed in on some good plus money there. All right, so here's what we noticed, okay? Besides just the nerves, the conditioning, and just he didn't even go out the stage on the right direction. He had to get told, you're going the wrong way. Martin Vettori was just not looking as good as Hermansson. Hermansson's the more dangerous all-around fighter. He's got more of a better submission game. He's got a better grappling game. And I noticed a lot of mistakes. And I know that I even seen him do this. Hermansson studies his opponents rigorously, religiously before the fight. He'll find out, and his trainers will find out every hole in their opponent's game. I noticed myself. I can see some holes in the holes that I found in Vettori's game are the type that are unforgivable. If you make these mistakes at championship level fights at this high of a level against a top 5 opponent as dangerous as Vettori, as Hermansson, you're gonna pay for it. Here's one example. Okay, I don't want to just go on to a tangent about I'll just give you one example of the holes that I've noticed. And I'm not a trainer. I was a trainer, but I'm not a trainer anymore. But I'm sure his trainers are higher level than I was ever a trainer. I was a trainer, I think a good one, but I'm sure these guys are UFC level trainers, probably way better than I ever was. And if I can find this hole in the guy's game, I'm sure he did as well. Vettori responds to every single feint like if it was a guaranteed, like there was nobody who can ever throw a feint or a fake jab or a fake hook or a fake takedown. Anytime you throw any type of feint or just any type of a strike, he responds to it very prompt and predictable and repeated the same exact way. He'll do this. So if you pretend like you're about to jab, he'll move his head the same way every time. Look at guys like Peter Yan, for example. Peter Yan purposely throws and misses on purpose to just see where your head movement is going to land you so that his next strike, the more dangerous strikes that he's planning on giving you, will land precise and right on the button so he can knock you out in devastating fashion. That's why he's a champion. They miss on purpose. They throw feints. They do feints to miss and lead you into a direction so that you're becoming predictable to them. They can see your movement now. They can beat you to it. So those holes alone, the way he moves on his back feet a lot, he's afraid of getting hit, and that's one of those things that his trainer will never be able to fix because the problem doesn't lie in your skill set or your mind, it's in your heart. If you're afraid to get hit, you're always going to flinch. And naturally, when you're flinching, you're probably going to do the same thing you're going to do the next time you flinch because flinching is a natural reflex. It's not a taught reflex. You don't learn it. It's natural. So a guy like that at that level, making mistakes like that, fighting at that level of amateur, I have a feeling it's going to end very badly for him, and he's going to be able to be taken down. You seen how easily his last opponent was able to take him down? or the guy on people without even nowhere near the level of grappling and takedowns and wrestling as Vettori has, and the strength without his strength are able to take him down. Imagine what Vettori could do. So my money's there on the underdog, Vettori. Hermansson. Another thing I observed on the fight card, on the face-offs and the weigh-ins, actually Jack Collier doesn't look as bad as Villante. They're almost at the same level, but what you have to think about is how they both look compared to the last time we saw them. Villante, I can argue, probably looks even worse. His gut hasn't gone anywhere. If anything, I think it got worse. He looks like he's in worse shape than he did last time we saw him, as opposed to Collier, who's at big plus money, who usually does more strikes. Like he puts more output out. So unless this pregnant Villante is going to be able to knock him out, and don't think that just because he was knocked out in his last fight against Aspinall that he's going to be easily to be able to be. Number one, he's made improvements. You can tell he's been putting time at the gym. Number two, he's got to redeem himself. So his mental is more in it now. He's more focused, and he's going to be more weary about not being hit with anything dangerous. Number three, Aspinall and Villante are two different types of animals, man. This is not the same beast. Aspinall's super accurate, super crisp, super powerful, and down the middle. He's not really, it doesn't throw hooks as much as down the straight pipe. So different type of fighter, different type of threat, different type of power. So I'm not gonna put my money on Villante at the way he looks and the way he's at his career right now at minus 300. No chance. I'd rather, if I'm gonna bet this, go with the underdog, who's looking more improved, more better, who's gonna have more output. I could see him winning in the decision cards, or even by a late finish, like how Maurice Green beat Villante after he gassed out because of the shape that he came into the fight in. All right, so that's another one I noticed we picked up on. OSP was, I think, one of the only people that missed weight. He missed it by 2.5 pounds, not much, but the fact of the matter is he had a lot of time left. I used to cut weight. I could take off 2 pounds in an hour. It's done. I've done more. It's easy. You put on layers and layers. They have specific type of material like sweat clothing that you can sweat in easier. You go into the sauna room, you do 1,000,000 push-ups and jumping jacks and cartwheels and whatever you want to do inside the sauna room. In that type of you'll see in an hour he could have shed that weight. He didn't want to do it. That tells me how serious he's taking his fight. At 38 years old, he knows he's at the end of his career. They're not going to probably re-sign another 5-year contract, so he's probably just cashing in the checks and going to move on to Bellator, Ryzen, or Silverwind, or wherever else they take the has-beens from UFC. So I definitely now feel more comfortable on the guy who came in at perfect weight, looking confident, looking focused, determined, and actually I think he even looks better than the last time we saw him. Jamahal Hill seems to be improving physically now as well. His mental is there, his focus was there. Everything points me in the direction of the guy who can throw 8 strikes landed per minute, move around the pocket on the outside while he's jabbing and moving around. He's not going to be stationary and stiff like how OSP usually is when he's in the strike. So OSP doesn't have that much of an output. He doesn't have the better footwork. He doesn't have the better cardio. He doesn't have a big reach and size advantage. I think it's like an inch difference between the two, so it's almost the same. No reason why anybody should believe Jamahal Hill will not win this fight. No reason, especially after the missed weight cut, forfeiting 30% of his purse. Told me everything I needed to know after that as well. Okay, so that's another confident pick. At the end, I'm going to give you my most confident. I'm going to tell you which ones I'm favoring in a parlay as opposed to single bets, and make some big money plays for you guys. But this is the type of stuff that I don't do this segment typically. I'm only doing it for people because I know Christmas is around the corner. Everybody had a bad week last week with all the bums on that card who you couldn't depend on. Now we're back on track. We got real fighters doing what they're supposed to do and what we can depend on them to do. So things are back to normal again. My accuracy will go back up from 70-80% to 90 to 100% like usual. All right. Montadella Rosa, if she was gonna be baking a cake and going on a date with her husband tonight, she looked great. But if you're going to put money on her in a fight against Taila Santos, who looks amazing, she looks better than ever. She's already looked better than De La Rosa in her last fight did. And if you look at both of their last fights, the one who made the most improvements from the fight before that one and the one who looks in the better shape was Santos. But if you compare them now, today especially, Santos, you could tell, has put some hours in the gym since that last fight, and she's looking better than ever. She looks jacked, ripped, confident, zoomed in like tunnel vision, focused on her opponent. Her mental is there, her physical is in tip-top shape. The strength discrepancy here is the key that's going to get her the victory. She may even get a finish, and I wasn't really leaning towards that, but when I noticed a difference in the physicality and the confidence, it would not surprise me to see her get a finish, because the only game plan, the only strategy, the only path to victory De La Rosa would have had is to utilize her clinch work and her wrestling advantages and make it a dirty fight where she can outpower and bully her opponent. That's her only way. You're not going to be able to do that to Santos. Not being De La Rosa, at least. You need a more dangerous opponent than her, and more stronger opponent than her to be able to do that to Santos. So this should have probably been a bigger discrepancy in the lines. I think I see a lot of value here on the girl. I don't like to really bet women's MMAs too much, because the physical isn't always the problem. It's more so even sometimes the mental. Like for example, like we had assumed after first round TKO, but to a gut shot. The girl got punched in the gut. Chukagan lost by just getting hit one time in her stomach. All 3 rounds, her opponent did not even go for one take. I mean, she went for like 1 or 2 takedowns, even succeeded in one of the 2 or 3 takedowns that she attempted, and was winning the round because of the takedown. The rest of the fight, she didn't do any more takedowns. She didn't try to hit her in the place that ended the fight against her that same opponent in her last fight, which was only like a month before that fight. So somebody drew the map on how to win this fight, and you even had success in doing stuff in the first round. You not only didn't go back to continuing and trying to chain wrestle and go to the only place you have the advantage of winning the fight, and you didn't even do what the last opponent did that beat her. So like when you're at this level, UFC level, you have trainers that people are at your corner supposed to be screaming out what to do. Sometimes I give these people the benefit of the doubt that I shouldn't. And usually I did my statistics, and if I took out girl fights out of all my bets and my parlays, I'd be a millionaire almost, man. I mean, my statistics would have risen from like 90% to 99%. Girl fights mess up my numbers a lot, so I try to stay away from them. Heavyweight fights are almost a similar type of thing, because it could be over the lesser man, the less good fighter. Example, like Rosenstruck was losing all 3 rounds to Alistar over him until one punch changed the entire outcome of the fight. So when fights like that, like where the better guy doesn't have to win because he gases out at that size, it happens a lot. Parisian won the first round, lost the second and third round because he gassed out against a guy who's a fade. Everybody fades. He never even had a victory in the UFC before. So fights like if I just take out my heavyweight, I'm making some adjustments, so I'm not going to be greedy taking out heavyweights and women for the most part. Now, if there's a proven person that I can depend on, I know for a fact, or there's a big fade, like last week we had Ostovic. I knew Ostovic was going to lose. There was no convincing me otherwise. Even though Mazzani was almost a fade as well, I would typically fade Mazzani. I just saw that with the weight class changes, with the camp changes, the new trainers, the way they looked in the face-offs, there was no way Mazzani was going to lose that fight, even as bad as she is. So we parlayed her, and she cashed it. All right, guys, we're back on track. The next fight, Movsar, Evloev, Nate Landwehr, too expensive for my taste. This is like there's only like 2 fights that I really noticed for the bad part. Like there's a couple of fights that I noticed that are undervalued. Like there's good value. They should have been bigger favorites, and they're not. And I can tell you the reason they're not bigger favorites, and they should be. And we'll get to that in a moment. But this is the opposite. This is a fight that should be lined up way closer than it is. Nate is no slouch. This guy's a killer. He's a great fighter. He's a veteran. He's had more experience, more wins, more finishes than Evloev. So you got to give him some respect there. We know what happens when you have sometimes the seasoned veteran against the new upcoming hype. Look what happened to Derek Brunson versus the hype train, the Armenian guy who was undefeated but was going against a veteran who knew how to pace himself better and who was able to ride out the early storm, and win in the later rounds. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if that happened here, it's kind of reminded me of the Koski fight. And I seen how Nate looked in the weigh-ins, but he was jacked. He was pumped. He looked like he was ready to go, but that could be something that would be the reason why he gets finished early as well. So if he doesn't be patient in a sense and try to strategize instead of just go out there like a angry madman, which never usually works in a fight, you got to be strategic and patient and wait for the openings instead of trying to force them. So it may be something that works against him, but at minus 700, I'm not willing to put $700 on a guy who's just not really proven amongst the top tier fighters. So I mean, he's a very boring fighter, which I kind of like if you're putting your money on it, but not at this price tag. So if you got a lot of money and you want to take a chance on somebody who should win, I'm still in the favor of Evloev winning. He's the better all-around fighter. He's got a better mixture of tools he can use. He's very concentrated on getting the win. He doesn't take risks. He doesn't take damage, and he doesn't mind making a boring fight just to get the win. And that's the kind of guy you can depend on, and that's probably why he's lined up so expensive. But if you're doing big parlays and there's some value in there, like a 7-8 leg parlay, sure, throw them on there. But there's too many other better values on this card. There's no need to have to bet on that fight. But my pick, and I didn't notice anything weird. They both came in good shape. They both came in confident. He gave him the mean mug right back, took off his glasses, and stared him right in his eyes. So that showed him that he's not afraid. He's confident. It should just be a fight where the guy with the better skill set wins. Nothing stood out to me, and that's Evloev, and I just don't think the price tag is worth it. So anything can happen in a fight, man. I mean, like I told you, Michel Pereira was winning all 3 rounds, 10-8 rounds, and by some disqualification freak accident, he lost to Diego Sanchez, who didn't even probably land a strike against Pereira. So when things like that can happen in the MMA world, it's very possible to happen. I don't want to put that type of money on anybody that I don't think is going to be able to finish a fight quickly, especially when it goes to decision scorecards. I've seen people who outlanded their opponents by more than 3 times in every area and still lost the decision card. So I wouldn't be surprised with judges the way they are, especially if Chris Lee is on the panel. I'm paying attention, guys. I want you to know this. I'm taking names and writing names down, and I know who to be careful for these days. So Chris Lee is one of those judges that I will never ever let. If I think it is a fight that can go to the decision and Chris Lee's on that panel, I'm not putting any money on that fight. I may actually take a shot at the underdog. All right. Anyways, next fight. Cody Durden versus Jimmy Flick. I don't like that he was wearing shades, but he does wear shades a lot, so it could be just I'm overthinking it. Cody Durden actually made championship weight. He didn't have to even use the 1 pound allowance, which is awesome. That tells me everything that I thought about him is confirmed. His work ethics, his training methods, everybody knows him to be, and everybody who talks about him in interviews, they always say he's a hard worker. He takes this very seriously. And now that they gave him a chance to quit his other job and focus on MMA full time, I especially will not be surprised if he gets a finish in this fight by like ground and pound or knockout. His opponent, Jimmy Flick, is very chinny. He's not durable. If he doesn't get the fight to the ground right away and he doesn't dominate him and outpower him, which I can't imagine happening because Durden's a good wrestler. He's the better wrestler. He's the way stronger guy. He's better on the feet. He's better in grappling. He's better at dirty boxing. I just don't see the path to victory. I don't know why he's not the favorite here. Though. He's the bigger guy coming down. Maybe because he had weight cut issues in the past. The guy went to a draw with Gutierrez, the guy who's only lost to Ronnie Barcelos, who his opponent Flick lost to. So it makes no sense here, but again, it could be one of those tricks that Vegas is trying to play with you guys. So I got my money on Durden. Not the best. Remember, anytime I say there's gonna, because his opponent is a good fighter, just I give the edge to Cody Durden here. So anytime it's gonna be a good fight, where it's gonna be a close matchup, or somebody's just lined up at way too of an expensive price tag like Evloev, I don't like to put them in parlays. It's not worth it. It won't make a big difference. Or because of the judges, the way they've been in a close fight, even though I know who should win, I don't like to parlay those. Those are good for single bets. So this is a good fight, the Cody Durden fight at plus money, especially Durden being at plus money. You don't need to parlay it, just single bet it. All right, Damon Jackson, Ilia Topuria both looked good in the training. Damon Jackson, from my research, does look like he's been working harder than Topuria has been on this training camp. I did want to see more from Topuria than I did from his training videos and training camp. It didn't seem like he's doing as much work. Damon Jackson really does want to get this win. He's going to come in motivated. He's going to come in, try to get the finish early, which is either going to backfire against him or it could work. But if you get usually in these type of fights where it's going to come down to grappling and trying to get the better positioning, it's kind of similar to the Tony Gravely and Durden, I forgot his opponent's name, where I told you guys that they're both going to come in with the same game plan. They're both going to want to take each other down, get the better positioning, and try to work from the floor on getting the finish. Same thing goes here, but it's gonna. I told you Tony Gravely was over the greatest. He was gonna be the guy who, if you were bench pressing on the weights, he could bench press much more, and that's why we've seen him with one arm pick up his opponents who are trying to do submissions and body slam them and get knockouts, because he's super strong. He's top heavy, very heavy on the top. He's very strong on the chest and arm and shoulder area region, and that's very important when you're on the ground trying to battle for positioning. So I expect him, because it's not really much, they're very close in skill sets, but as far as strength and speed, I would give him the edge over Damon Jackson. So he should be the favorite. He will probably get the finish if it stays on the ground long enough, and if Damon Jackson gets desperate for trying to finish Topuria, he'll put himself in dangerous positions because he'll be more offensive than defensive, which can open up areas for Topuria to be offensive as well. And as I said, the stronger person should get the advantage in that point, and that's where I favor Topuria here. So Topuria is my pick. Nothing really stood out in the weigh-in. They both looked fine. Nothing weird there. So just keeping my regular pick there. Damon Jackson. All right, Gabriel, Benitez, Justin Jaynes. Now here's the thing, okay? Justin Jaynes, as I told you guys, he's a new guy to the UFC. Probably one of those guys that would have never even been brought into the UFC if it wasn't for them making this change to coming out with fights every Saturday instead of once a month. Also with their pandemic era that we're in now, people afraid to fight and can't train and don't want to sign deals to make fights until they're prepared better. So for reasons like that, they brought in people like this, people like Parker Porter, and a lot of other fighters that shouldn't be there. Well, anyways, so he's also proven to me that he still hasn't become accustomed to the way that this works. Like, he is the only fighter who came to the scales not dressed, already in his underwear, basically, to get onto the scales. He didn't have to even undress, and there's a reason for that, because he barely made weight. He had to use the 1 pound allowance that you wouldn't have even got if it was a championship fight. And he's big for the division in size, not really height. He's just thicker. He's a big, thick guy. So I knew he was going to have trouble anyways, but the fact that it wasn't a short notice fight, really, he had plenty of time, and he came in, he was the only guy who, there's a reason for it, because he was in the back, and he came in as one of the latest people on the scales. He wasn't one of the first few, he was one of the last few, and that told me because he was back there trying to shed off the pounds last minute. That tells me that he doesn't have a system, he doesn't have a regiment, he doesn't have a diet, he doesn't have the people that that the higher level fighters can afford, the nutritionists and the people who are watching them and helping them make sure that they're in the best shape they could be. And that's a huge factor. It plays a part in your mental, it plays a part in your physical, both mental and physical. So he came in on the scales like he was probably on and off the unofficial scales in the back of the locker rooms trying to shed off the pounds at the last minute. And as soon as he made it, he was like, yes, I finally can now go on to the official scales just in time and not lose 30% like OSP did. So that tells me he had trouble. He had to wait till the last minute. His system is not really very good. He's probably not doing what he should be doing the right way. And I'm now more even than before leaning towards his opponent to get the win, who's the favorite, rightfully slow. He's rightfully slow, just like Tucker did. He showed the experience. He showed that UFC level experience and talent is much different than those guys who at the age of 30-something still couldn't make it to the UFC until this pandemic era. Because this guy's been trying to get into the UFC. Guitar Hero, Jaynes, he's been trying to get into the UFC forever. He never got the call up until this era. So, and his training, I mean, his weight cut issue thing confirmed how the same thing I'm thinking about him in the ring. He's not, the tricks and the level of experience that comes with being in the UFC and fighting against other UFC talents and experienced fighters that his opponent has is gonna be a big advantage. It's gonna play a role, especially because the guy's gas tank is not that great either. He fades he's a one-round bust, make it or break it type of a guy. So if he doesn't get the knockout in the first round, and his opponent knows that, he's not gonna know how to pace himself. He doesn't know that all of his finishes were in the first round, and he does lose a lot in other rounds. He doesn't do well in the other rounds, so I expect this one to be with the way he looked at the face-off and the weigh-ins, probably all 3 rounds, 30-27. I don't even expect him to. I thought that he probably could win the first round, and then his opponent would come back in the second and third and get the unanimous decision from 2 rounds to 1. I wouldn't be surprised if he lost all 3 rounds in this fight. So, all right, guys, you got my take on that fight. But, I mean, if you want to hedge, I mean, if you're just trying to bet smart and you always want to win, you could sprinkle some money on him to win by knockout in the first round, or just finish in the first round, and then put the difference in the money on his opponent by money line or decision. I would just put money line on it because he could finish Justin Jaynes at the later rounds. So that would be a good way to ensure your bet, by just because it's going to be probably paying like plus 300, 400, plus 500 to get him to win in the first round. It's going to be big plus money. So you only have to put like 10 bucks on that, and then you would win more than your money back that you put on his opponent to win as just a regular straight money line bet. But again, not a good fight for the parlays. This is just a single bet, and I showed you a way you could protect your money by doing a small amount on the plus money for Jaynes by TKO, like how he beat Camacho in the first round, early in the first round. Okay, Louis Smolka versus Jose Quinonez. Quinonez is a pretty dangerous opponent in his own right, but I would say Louis Smolka is a far more dangerous, well-rounded mixture of skill set, and he looked awesome at the weigh-ins. He showed me what I wanted to see. He was making small talk with the guy working the scales and the media, and he was just showing that his focus was there, his mental was there, his weight was great. He didn't even need the 1 pound allowance, so anybody who was worried about his weight cutting, he was one of the first on the scales. He didn't have to use the allowance, the grace extra pound that they allow. So that was a good sign. And he just looked physically and mentally in excellent shape. And usually when he's at that type of a condition at 100%, unless you're one of the killers in the division, the Nathaniel Woods, the Casey Kennys, or the champion top 3, top 5 levels, this guy will run through the other guys. The Sumata Jerry's even. Sumata Jerry to me is a more impressive fighter than Quinonez. He's a more dangerous fighter, and he finished Sumata Jerry in the first round. So I don't see somebody who's coming off a first round loss as well. Quinonez against Sean O'Malley lost in the first round. I don't see him posing much of a threat here. He's, got jiu-jitsu tatted on his chest, but when he was put on the ground against guys, he's even lost on the ground and been submitted, and he doesn't have many submissions and nothing impressive that I've seen in his resume. So another one of those guys who just front, I'm not high on him. I think he's a fade against Louis Smolka. The reason he's not lined as a bigger favorite, I do see value here. I think Louis Smolka should be a much bigger favorite. It's just because, like I had said before, he had he was battling through some substance abuse issues, weight cut issues. We haven't seen him in a long time. He had a loss to Casey Kenny when Casey Kenny wasn't very popular and wasn't really proven in UFC level. But now we know what type of an animal he is as well, especially when he made that quick return and came back and fought again against Nathaniel Wood after coming out of a fight where he had made like 600 strikes with his legs, even though he had won decisively the fight before Nathaniel Wood and by a landslide. It takes a lot when you're doing that type of a damage on somebody. You're using your body parts and it hurts. Like when Conor McGregor beat Nate Diaz. His leg was swollen from the leg kick. So sometimes being on the offense can hurt you as much as somebody getting hurt by being on the defense, taking hits. So sometimes giving hits can be as painful as taking a hit, but you have to do it to win in the scorecards and get the finishes. So it's a sacrifice you got to make with your body. And Casey Kenny showed to be super durable and tough to make a quick turnaround and fight Nathaniel Wood after a battle that, I think he broke numbers in that last fight before the Wood fight. He threw some crazy, he fought against, I think it was Tyson Nam, somebody who was very durable, who was getting his butt whipped all 3 rounds, but stuck around and didn't get finished. So very impressed. That's a guy who beat Louis Smolka, but I don't think Louis Smolka was at his best. He did have some good moments in that fight. He did show some impressive skill sets on that fight as well, but I think this is going to be a better Smolka, and this is not as dangerous of an opponent. Nowhere near the level of Casey Kenny. So I'm definitely seeing a lot of value on this, and I think, as I said, he should be lined up as a bigger favorite if they knew what we knew. All right, next fight. We've got I think we're pretty much done with all the fights. Oh, Jordan Leavitt, Matt Wiman. Matt Wiman did not look like a fighter. He looked like he's got the dad bod. He's working the dad bod. And I was not impressed with his last few performances. So even though I don't agree with the line, I never would like to put this much money on a guy like Jordan Leavitt, who has very bad stand-up skills. He's got excellent ground games, a super big threat on the ground, but taking it to the ground and being defensive on the feet to avoid big shots and being put to sleep, like against threats, hard hitters, or guys with a good mixture, well-rounded fighters in the top 10, this guy's going to get killed. I would fade Jordan Leavitt against a lot of guys in the top 5, top 10 especially. But against Matt Wiman, I probably still want to side with him, but at that price tag, being like the second, third biggest favorite on the card, I don't want to touch this. Not on a parlay, not on a single bet. Maybe a prop bet on the under, I guess. I can maybe feel good about that one a little bit more than anything else, but I wouldn't, if somebody told me Matt Wiman won by decision, split decision or something like that, avoided the takedowns, or I would not be surprised. So again, the price don't make sense. The skill sets, I got to see him improved. And the guy who does like splits and starts shaking his butt and juking on the stage, I'm not comfortable putting I want to see a fighter, a killer, not a dancer in the ring, So a lot of reasons I don't feel comfortable at putting my money on this guy. Anyways, but he's my pick. Wyman's a fade. I can understand why. He doesn't take this serious. He seems to be only showing up for paychecks. It doesn't look like to have been improved. Nothing stood out in his trainings that makes me think that he's taking this serious now. So I'm going with the favorite, Jordan Leavitt. But again, at that price tag, I don't want to put him anywhere. Not a straight bet, not a single bet. Don't even need to get greedy and even put a prop bet. But if you have to bet on all the fights, that'd probably be the best to find a prop bet. All right. And next fight, I think we're done actually, guys. Okay, so you got my post-weigh-in, face-off video predictions. I'll give you my most confident picks for this card. I like how Roman Dolidze looked. John Allen. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this fight. Roman Dolidze looked great. He looked in the best shape I've seen him in, and he had the very confident look in his eyes that looked at like, I know I'm going to have my way with you, I'm going to dominate you type of a look, like just oozing with confidence. He was even smirking, and that's the type of demeanor he shows inside the ring. He talks crap to his opponents, he tells them come on and bring it. People are scared of going to the ground with him, rightfully so. The guy's like a black belt, he's a BJJ tournament champion. He does a lot of he does a lot of work on the mat with grappling and submission. So he's a very big threat on the ground. And because his opponents know that, just like in all the Khabib fights and you know, Damian Maia fights and everybody who usually is a big threat on the ground, their opponents are very weary on the feet as well. They start to be hesitant about opening up, like the Brian Ortega versus Korean Zombie fight. We've seen Zombie look worse than ever before on the feet. He didn't open up. He was, every time Ortega threw a feint like he was going to go for a takedown, he reacted very badly, and he was just on the defense more than the offense, and that takes away from the striking offense, and I expect to see that on this fight, which is why he'll have openings, and that's why he gets a lot of knockouts and lands like 8 strikes per minute and only gets hit with like 1. The guy's got very impressive off the chart numbers in his statistics, his landing per minute and absorb, and it tells a story because of what I always tell you guys about when guys like Jack Hermansson, who are big threats on the floor, and their opponents know. Look what happened to Kevin Gastelum within seconds. He didn't even go, he wasn't even on the ground with Jack Hermansson. Hermansson was the only one on the ground, and he found a way to finish the fight. So, you know, imagine if he just pulls guard. It's over. All right, and so Roman Dolidze is one of my most confident picks. Just because of the way he fights, for your money, the way he's going to be nonstop making chain wrestling and submission attempts at getting it to where he's going to have the advantage. Ilia Topuria is another good confident pick of mine. I expect him to stay undefeated and be 10-0. Another good pick, Taila Santos. I think we'll just have no trouble. I just don't see any areas where she could lose this fight and be threatened in any way by De La Rosa, who doesn't have a good record, hasn't really been impressive. She's really just somebody that is known for her big heart. She's got a lot of heart, and she'll continue to come forward even after getting beat up. But that doesn't win fights. That loses decisions. That's it. So Taila Santos, another confident pick of mine. Louis Smolka should be one of those. If you're going to do parlays, I would at least have one parlay with Louis Smolka in there. He's paying very well, and in a parlay especially, you're going to get plus money for that. It's like getting an underdog for the price of for the quality of a favorite. So, but other than that, another underdog I would take a chance at paying plus money is Jake Collier, but not a parlay piece. Movsar Evloev is too expensive, so maybe not even a parlay piece. But if you're doing a big pick parlay, you could probably add him in there if you notice it makes a difference. But I prefer not to, because Nate is a threat. And in the later rounds, I wouldn't be surprised if he surprised everybody and just pulled some desperation submission or something like that. Okay, so that's it, guys. You got my most confident picks. If you want to add it, I noticed there was like a 4 or 5 leg parlay I posted on Twitter and my Patreon. If you added like Cyril Gain and like Figueiredo, just 2 more guys on that parlay, it pays 14-1. $40 will get you like $1,000. So I got some excellent parlays. If you look at my Twitter, I've hit 9, 10 leg, 12 leg parlays with underdogs in them. So 3 underdogs in them. So these type of parlays with favorites that should do what favorites are supposed to do, and why, if they were rightfully so the favorites, and I do agree on most of these being the rightful favorites. So this is one of those cards that we should have a lot of success in our parlays, single bets, and no need to really get greedy and go into prop bets, but I've given you some of those as well. So thank you guys for your time. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, the bell notifications. I'll be coming out with some more important videos that are time sensitive to get ahead of the line movement. Thank you guys for your views. Make any comments on the section if you have any questions about anything. Thank you guys. Good luck on your bets. See you on the next video.